It's 5:30. We will call the public hearing on ordinance 2202 to order. And this is a public hearing on the second reading of the ordinance. I don't believe we have anybody from the public offering comments, so we'll open it up to the board as far as anything that would like to be said or added at this point. Okay, up. And for Deb, since you're on here, I made the mistake of rereading the ordinance today, and under section 13, the emergency clause, the last sentence confused me just a little bit, because my understanding is that after the second reading, we would pass the ordinance, but it would not take effect till 30 days in the future, which I seem to remember was because that's the way ordinances take effect. So what I'm wondering is, with the last sentence in that, which says, an emergency is therefore declared to exist, and this ordinance shall take effect upon adoption. Well, I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, and Jerry, you're the other attorney in the room, that the effect upon adoption, if we're adopting it tonight, how does that work?
I'm afraid that's a question for the board.
We lost. Something's, hold on for just a second. We're having some volume problems.
Hang on a minute.
John, does the ordinance itself somewhere say that it takes effect in 30 days, so that by taking effect, the part that will take effect in 30 days is effective?
I
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
looking for it in the document.
Do we have because we?
That is in statutes, the statutes to say, within 30 days,
You guys-
these things shall happen.
Turn
And
off
that
our
30
speakers,
days
I'll turn
starts
this one on.
immediately, because the statute takes effect immediately.
Just leave the video on.
Starting immediately, 30
Okay,
days starts.
well, the mic's off, so you should be able to.
Starting immediately 30 days hence.
Right, if another provision of the contract says that it takes effect in 30 days,
Yeah,
the emergency clause says that clause takes effect now, so that the 30 days.
I can't hear anything, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Let her,
Okay, so we had a little technical difficulty. We're just gonna run off my laptop. Okay,
All I said was, I think that's a question for Clark. That's not a part of the ordinance that is part of my expertise. That's a procedural issue related to your ordinance, not to the SDC statute specifically.
yeah, I think Jerry, and you couldn't hear him, we were having audio and mic problems.
could you say that again?
It's an emergency clause. Go ahead, Jerry.
I don't know if this is in here, so I hesitate to say this, but it could be that somewhere in here, there's something that says that within 30 days, the charge will take effect, so that the emergency clause just says that the 30 days starts now. The 30 days starts immediately, because the contract starts now,
Okay,
including the part that says it takes effect in 30 days.
Well,
But I want to see if that's in here. If that's not in here, then that's whole issue.
I'm not a lawyer, but section 13 seems like it's part of the ordinance, and it stands alone, kind of. It's an emergency clause in order to finance the improvements, so if we had to go get financing for it, the board could pass, I guess, by resolution that would be effective immediately upon adoption. Now, it doesn't say resolution, I understand that, but this sounds like it's just addressing an emergency issue that would come up from something we have in our facility plan.
No, it's not independent. It says that the whole agreement, where usually an ordinance would take effect in a certain amount of time, we declare an emergency, which allows us to waive that.
Okay.
So what I'm looking for is something else. So first of all, is that a problem?
I don't know if there's how that 30-day wait period, which I'm assuming is in the ordinance, figures in.
Section 7G,
7G?
I think. The decision of the board as to whether to accept the proposed plan of contribution of a qualified public improvement and the value of such contribution shall be in writing and issued within 30 working days of the date. Is that right, or is that, or no, that's for
That's,
something else.
I
I saw 30
believe,
days and got excited.
that's under the credits for developer contributions of qualified public improvements.
Sure is.
So,
If there's not anything in here that, like I'm talking about, then the emergency clause says that it takes effect immediately, notwithstanding.
Dan, I'm looking at the 2005 ordinance, and it said, it had the same verbiage. We didn't make any changes to the emergency clause section other than to say, capital improvement plan or other comparable plan. So there was no, this ordinance is the same as that one was for section 13.
Do you recall why we had to wait 30 days after adopting this ordinance? I cannot recall why the 30 days was in there.
Where does it say, where does it reference 30 days?
Well, during our planning process, we were to have two readings. The second reading was supposed to be tonight at this board meeting of ordinance 22-02, and it was to take effect 30 days from tonight, which would take us to January 15th. And then we were going to do the 3 resolutions.
It may be, well, the only thing I can think of, and again, I would defer to Clark, who, working on this part of it, that maybe because of the change to having you adopt separately the fee schedule, it used to be that the methodology was kind of wrapped up in this ordinance. And now, we've pulled out the project list, the fee schedule, the methodology. So, I don't know if that, in doing so, then that impacts the 30 days or not. But, the language in section 13 is the same with respect to when, an emergency is declared and this ordinance shall take effect upon adoption.
We're not declaring an emergency, I don't think,
no.
tonight.
That's, I'm assuming not.
Well, it seems like you could just, and again, this is outside of my area of expertise, the board could say, we're not gonna adopt it tonight, right? I mean, you can say, we're gonna carry it over, I think, to the January meeting and then adopt it then, or go back and change this language, but I don't think there's anything that compels you to have to adopt it tonight. Certainly not from the SEC statute.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to add, but I'm all right with deferring the adoption till our next board meeting, pending clarification of this language. I mean, it's,
What is the critical issue with the 30 days? That's what I'm trying
I
to
don't
find
know.
out.
I don't know.
How did that ever come about?
I thought that was in the discussion with Clark, and I didn't bring
Do you have the statute?
the statutes with me.
The statute?
I think that is kind of a standard 30-day period in terms of when things go into effect, unless it's declared and, unless there's some sort of emergency effectiveness. I've heard that before. I just don't know all the nuances of it.
Have you heard it in the context of these charges, or just generally in terms of statute?
Generally with other fees and charges.
Okay, because the default period for a statute is 90 days as the legislature, but it would be completely likely that the statutes dealing with these charges specifies a 30-day period that you can waive in the ordinance adopting and implementing it, so. if we have the statute, we could take a quick look at that, but unless Clark and some,
So,
what's the problem with it going into effect immediately, I guess is?
Well, I don't see a problem with it going into effect immediately. We just have everything set to, for some reason, we have it set that we're gonna do like a 30-day waiting period. And I don't know if that's for comment, feedback, or whatever, which,
well, the second reading and then approval is.
this is the
would
second
be
reading.
tonight. This is the second reading
Yeah.
and approval. And then 30 days before implementation. I don't know whether that's just to further advise the public or what that may be.
Well, the 30 days had something to do with the resolutions. So maybe we had to wait 30 days to follow up with resolutions after adopting. So you'd have to adopt it tonight.
Okay, so on that basis, I don't have a problem with then going ahead unless anybody else believes, so adopting it tonight and then
At
we'll
the
get
next board meeting, do that.
clarification.
Okay.
I agree with that, I can't think of a reason why we couldn't make it effective tonight, but take action later on it if we need to.
Yeah.
If there's some delay needed in taking action on it, still, the ordinance itself is in effect.
Do we need,
Jim, I think Jim wanted to chime in.
Yeah, Jim?
Yeah, I don't know what are we talking about here? Give me some context.
We're talking about the adoption process for ordinance 22-02.
Which is?
Which is the umbrella ordinance which covers the resolutions for the methodology, for the rates that will be charged, and for the list of projects that would be listed as perhaps undertaken in the future.
This is the SC, this involves the SDC fees.
So originally, when we contracted with Deb, we were all talking methodology.
Right.
And then as we got further into it, I frankly discovered this 2005 ordinance, which was the ordinance adopting system development charges, which is sort of an umbrella ordinance. It doesn't specifically address any of those three items, but it talks about implementing them, and if you look on page, I think 4, is it 4, C, and under section 4, item C, and then item B under section 5, it says that you can provide for the methodology, the capital improvement projects, and the planned costs of the SDC by resolution, rather than having to put everything in the ordinance and then having, if you ever change anything in 2 or 3 years, any one of those items, you would have to change the entire ordinance and the entire setup. And that was Deb's recommendation originally, was that there be separate resolutions from the methodology and also from the ordinance. So we're here to adopt the ordinance tonight, which is sort of the umbrella for the resolutions that will actually affect the SDCs.
Excellent summary. And I think you're right. I think, so it must have been that procedurally you have to adopt this 30 days before then you can take action on the resolutions. So adopting this, you're not implementing the fees tonight. That comes with the resolutions. So that was I think, spot on what you just summarized there.
Jim, does that help a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And when you look at the methodology, you will see that in the back, there's appendices for the charges and also the list of items to be done. But what you need to note is that's an appendice. It is not have the authority of a resolution, even though the methodology itself is a resolution. That may sound kind of confusing, but I think that's basically the direction Clark, and I guess to some degree you too, Deb, were going when we were trying to lay this whole thing out.
Yes.
So you would see the resolutions, all three of them, at the January board meeting, which is what, the 18th
Yeah,
of January, and they would be approved then, and then everything would go into effect basically immediately.
This only speaks to appropriate resolutions. There doesn't seem to be anything in here that having it take effect immediately would interfere with anything else in the agreement. It wouldn't force any quicker action on the resolutions. It might be necessary to take the action as quickly as you want to.
the last conversation that I had with Clark over the three resolutions, which we were, kind of skeptical on how to approach that. He said that you could approve the three resolutions, but not for them to take effect for 30 days. So I just think that you have to adopt this first, and then what you're doing
Well,
is,
and
in
it
30
makes
days,
sense.
you're adopting the three resolutions.
It seems to make
Approving.
sense to have the ordinance approved and then follow it with the resolutions
And that's,
under the scope of the ordinance.
and that's what Clark was saying.
Yeah, and that's something that, when we first started this endeavor, I didn't understand, and it wasn't until just the last several months, I think, that we really kind of pulled it together as far as all the pieces we needed,
Right.
so. Okay, does anybody have anything else they would like to add at this point?
We're not taking action yet, right? We take that
That's-
later in the meeting?
Correct.
Okay. I have no other.
Okay, if there's no other comments, do you have anything you'd like to add, Deb?
No, I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, like when we were with Clark and I said that you ought to be our attorney. She had it really together.
Except for issues on emergency clauses,
Yeah.
then we still need Clark.
So, okay, I'll plan to adjourn the meeting of the hearing of the second reading at 5:48. And Deb, please don't feel that you need to hang around, and get better soon.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
All right. So, and we'll convene
Right here, Mark.
the regular Board of Directors meeting. The first item is approval of the agenda. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
And a second?
Second?
Okay, the only thing I'd like, well, I might add this, board comments, yeah, I can fit it in there, so it won't bother at this point.
We have to add that.
Excuse me?
We have to add this to the agenda.
Okay, so let's,
I know you talked about this in your district report.
I talked about it in the district report that we were waiting for the contracts.
Okay.
I didn't
So-
expect them today.
are we approving that tonight?
You've already approved the project, what you're doing, you're just signing
Signing.
contracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's see, I guess would that be under old business?
Close enough.
I think it go on to
Okay.
business.
And what do we wanna call that? It's just not.
Signing of previously approved contracts.
It's for the Oceanside pump station improvement. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay, so with that, one change, all in favor of accepting the agenda as written, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
All right, it's approved unanimously. Guests, there are none. Public comments, there are none. Board questions, comments, discussion. One of the things that has come up in the last month was we apparently never had sent a letter. Well, we had sent a letter to the Tillamook County clerk saying that we were looking for a person to fill Craig Wakefield's position. We had never followed it with a letter for your appointment to the county. So now we have, and I happen to be down there asking them about our latest position to be open, which is Peter's position. And they went through the file and they couldn't find such a letter. So this is just a very short letter, and you gave me the copy of it. And we can give it to you, Jim, if you're interested, but it just says, the above referenced letter indicated Board of Directors position 3 was vacant and that we were looking for somebody to fill the position. Elizabeth Whipperman, a registered Oceanside voter residing at 5445 Daisy Street, was unanimously approved by the board to fill the position on May 19th. She will fill the position through June 30th, 2023. So that was that letter. Subsequently, at the Oceanside Neighborhood Association, and Jerry helped me out, I announced we were looking for some people for board positions. And actually, it was primarily for Peter's vacant position. And one or two people asked for more information, and so I did a sheet on that. And this has basically what's been put out, and it describes the position and that we'll be looking to fill it through June 30th of this coming year, and it would be by appointment of the board. And down at the bottom it says we're not going to plan on doing interviews. If you have a letter of interest, submit it, and we would select the person to fill at the January 19th monthly board meeting. So that's been put out. I don't know that we have a whole lot of interest. I do know that Simeon Dreyfus is interested in, he's a resident of Oceanside, is interested in helping out and being on the board. So, yes, sir.
I was thinking of people too, but one question that occurred to me was, is there an informal or formal preference for somebody from Netarts to fill that position?
Well, and that's, I was gonna get to that
Oh, sorry.
later, but we can talk about it now. Right now, the way it's set up, 3 positions are currently held by Oceanside folks. 1 position, Jim's position, is held by a resident of Netarts. Fortunately, Peter lived in Netarts. So ideally, you know, whether it's 3 from Netarts and 2 from Oceanside, or 2 from Netarts and 3 from Oceanside, whatever, fine. But it would be desirable to be 3 and 2, whatever it is. I don't know if we can achieve that. I think you posted this flyer also down at the community center in Netarts.
Yes.
So if nobody's looking at our website or attending a meeting, I don't know that it's getting as much show down in the Netarts area. I don't, you know, I don't know that they have anything like either the community club or the neighborhood association that we have, unless, Jim, you have some ideas for how it might be spread out more as far as informing people. And,
Yeah, there's a outfit called Webb's
right,
that there's a bunch of people that have recently moved to the area that are residing in Netarts. Someone there might be interested. I could contact their coordinator.
and the other point is, we're talking about a position right now that's for 6 months.
Right.
So it's not a 2-year or 4-year elected position. So while ideally I would like to have somebody from Netarts, I feel like, you know, this is fairly short term, and we'll have to see who's interested in, you know, filling a voted into position also. Which brings up the third thing, and I'm sorry, Jim, that I put this together. I should have put some of this stuff together earlier, and this is very much like what you had prepared, except it just updates Peter Starkey. But this is all the 5 positions, which it's kind of interesting in that 4 of the 5 will be up for election come May. The only position that's going on into the future is Jerry's position. But basically, you know, the Peter Starkey's position, that will be for 2 years more, come the 1st of July 23. And the position that Elizabeth is now in is up for 2 years, and come the 1st of July, or this coming May election. My position is up for 4 years, as is Jim's position up for 4 years. So, you know, it's kind of, to me, a little bit unusual that 4 of the positions are like that, but that maintains the 2 years and 3 year intervals, and I think that's done basically statewide to maintain continuity. Not to say everybody gets elected for 4 years and then you got nobody. So,
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it changes anything except that as we're out kind of beating the bushes, bear in mind it would be nice, but that since it's only a 6-month position, really the stronger effort for diversity, if that, you know, if that's what you want to call it.
exactly.
Is when we aim at the 4 permanent ones. So, that's really, isn't that really all that needs to be said is, same date, we're gonna do this in January.
Yeah.
And we're all still the same people beating the bushes,
Yeah.
just kind of bearing in mind, it would be nice, Jim, if you had someone in Netarts, but probably more important to fill it than to wait, since that person will have the option of running or not running
Yeah.
in 6 months anyhow.
Well, and what I had said in this little flyer, and that we would decide at the January board meeting if we have letters of interest provided to us. So, I don't know, maybe, Jim, I'll send you a copy of this, the memo about vacant position number 1. And
Okay.
if, you know, if you can beat the bushes and come up with a name or 2, that'd be great. But
Okay.
like Jerry says, the bigger issue, if you wanna call it an issue, is to try to get that diversity into who gets elected come the May 18th election. So,
Okay.
And To answer, all the decades I've been here, it's never been official, it's just been one of those unofficial, let's try to, I mean, we've had 3 board members from Netarts, 2 from Oceanside, it swaps around.
That's what I figured at some point it probably
Yeah,
had.
but because it votes, I mean, it's Netarts and Oceanside, you have to be a resident of one or the other to vote, so, I mean, even a Netarts can vote for you or you.
Right, right.
So,
And there's more votes in Netarts than there are in Oceanside.
yeah, and I do agree with John, it's more important, or with you, that the position needs to be filled by a resident of Netarts and Oceanside, so,
Yeah,
of the district.
you know, and I don't know, maybe as, the growth that's taken place with Ocean Highlands, we may have some viable, candidates who would be interested. Everybody's viable if they can vote, but it might be folks that are interested.
And I would also say, I'm more interested in having people that are interested than I am in people we beg them to run in order to have diversity. So,
Yeah.
that to me, it's, that would be more important, but all things being equal, diversity seems to make sense.
I can tell you that, I haven't really said exactly for what, but I can tell you that, Simeon Dreyfus, that lives across the street from you guys, is very interested in being involved in public service, and he's interested in the sanitary district.
Oh, he's a good guy.
So he, you know, he has sent an email, he sent a resume, he sent, you know, he's demonstrated his interest and said he'd like to take a tour. So, I mean, I know he's
Good.
interested, and I've had several phone conversations with him, and he would be, I invited him to come to the meeting, and except that his daughter is coming in from France, either last night or tonight, I said, don't worry about us, just, you know, catch up with your daughter.
What kind of priorities does he have?
Yeah.
What's his skill set? What's his background?
Education,
Okay.
college professor,
Oh, wow.
English, literature, writing, you know, good, solid educational background of higher education. You know, and
Very good.
He ran for Oceanside Neighborhood Association president and for the city council. So he's, you know, he's definitely been looking for ways to be involved.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So, and I'll get you the flyer and also the little list of positions here, Jim. I'll send that to you in the morning.
Okay, I just received a text from Clark. The plan is to adopt the ordinance tonight, the 3 resolutions after 30 days at the next board.
Okay, and so that language doesn't
No,
affect
no.
us.
He said that you need to adopt it.
It's necessary.
It's necessary to adopt it tonight.
Okay,
You could have done the 3 resolutions tonight, but you would have still had to wait to make them active in 30
right,
days.
and it's
So,
better for him to
yeah,
wordsmith
So-
those.
we got clarification, adopt tonight.
Okay, okay. So, any other board questions, comments, or discussion? All right, so review of the minutes of November 17, 2022, regular board meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move.
Second,
Second.
I'll second that.
discussion? Oh, I was wondering, on page 3, and I probably have this wrong, the first paragraph, the next to last sentence, where it says, I have contacted Emery and Sons to assist in the design and replacement of the failed section. Is that Westek, or both of them, or just Emery?
What are you
I,
Page 3,
Okay.
3,
at the top.
Under collection
Right
system.
here. I have contacted it.
I have contacted Emery and Sons to assist in the design. Is that just Emery?
So, Emery and Sons is the contractor,
Right,
yeah.
but when you talk about the design, in that sentence, is that West Tech, or is that, does Emory just do all of it? I just was curious.
So think of the way the term design is used, it's like a contractor design build.
Okay,
So
Okay.
you kind of design it as you go to make it fit.
okay. Okay. Had a question at the top of page 4. You had talked several meetings ago about potential problems with disposal of the biosolids in the future. That there was fields that they had been put in, but there was some environmental concerns with that, or something out in East Oregon or Washington. I'm
No,
just-
the reason that we went from land application here in Tillamook to facultative sludge processing lagoons
Okay,
is because it's harder and harder to find property that's large enough to approve due to the setbacks from creeks and water sources. And the farmers kind of take priority on their land to spread their fertilizer, their cow manure.
Okay.
So it's shrinking in order to find property that you can land apply.
and you had talked about there's one method where the biosolids are spread, and there's another where they're dried and compressed into
Mhm.
blocks. Is that gonna be a problem in 3 years or 5 years, as far as costs go and what method we have to use? I mean, is it becoming more restrictive, I guess is what I was wondering.
Every year it gets more restricted.
Okay,
So you have pathogen controls, there's a lot of detail that goes further into that. You have to come up with a biosolids plan at least a year or so before you plan on hauling it out. So at this point, we don't know if we're gonna haul it to drying beds in eastern Oregon to the desert, if we're going to bring in and do a slurry and what you call, dry blocks or a cake form and prepare it to go to like a landfill.
which,
Yeah, my recall of we had this discussion in detail as, for an explanation of the $200,000.
yeah,
Already,
whether,
so this was-
and the bottom line was, I was wondering, is that gonna be sufficient? Or are we gonna end up with a price spike on what it would take to, we don't know, I guess.
That's
At
probably-
today's dollars, that's the estimate, it's about 200,000.
Okay,
In 5 years, when we have to really look at hauling it out, it could be 250,000. It could,
And we already agreed we're gonna be reviewing budget things like this every year. now.
every
Yeah.
year,
So-
yes,
no,
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right, all right. The last item, 11B, line 3, where it says rate list should be put into a form of a resolution so that we could make changes without changing the methodology. So might that not be, and rate lists should be put into separate resolutions, that the project and rate list should be put into separate resolutions so that we can make changes without changing the methodology.
Oh, so 2 resolutions rather than all in a single resolution?
Yeah,
Yeah, so cross out A and add an S to resolution.
yeah, yeah. And then into separate resolutions,
Yeah, it could be a generic reference to the form
yeah.
for themselves.
But we'll get it. That was all I had to ask about. Does anybody have anything else to bring up? All right, in favor of accepting the November 17th regular board meeting minutes with that one minor change, say aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Aye. It's approved. November 30th, 2022 financial statements for review of all funds. Motion to accept the financial statements.
Your turn, Jim. Is he still there?
Or
He didn't hear.
I'll make the first motion.
Okay. I'll second it.
All right, discussion.
I didn't see anything out of line or any surprises. Do you have any you want to call to that attention?
No, like I said, I just beat that same drum, just kind of review page 7. That tells you where you're at with your health. The rest of them are kind
And
of,
also on the debt service fund, page 6, you'll see that we're finally starting to get money from the county coming in, so we now have enough to pay our bonds next.
without having other funds cut.
Carry.
Yeah.
That's good.
SDCs are coming in.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got, what, 3 of them in November?
Yeah,
I think we've received more this month too.
we've only received
Really?
one so far.
One more in December.
Yeah, one more in December.
All right. Yeah, so what you see there plus another 10,000.
So we really don't expect any increase of people trying to get in under the increase.
We have one more that wants to
I
do.
mean, there, obviously, construction is not based on that, but,
Avalon Heights would like to get in under, but I don't think they're far enough along. They just completed phase 1 of the sewer system. And I don't know where he's at. He's gotta get everything plotted, and so he still has more work to do. It's too close. He doesn't have enough time.
and how many is that approximately?
Well, it's
Phase 1.
54 total. Phase 1, I think, is 25.
Okay,
Okay, he told me 5 within a year. I thought that would be a
Well,
phase, but
well, phase 1 for the sewer system, that's how I'm looking at it. Phase 1 is like 20, it's almost 25 homes. And he wants to do the first 5 next to the road with ejector pumps, but,
that's,
he has some more things to do before I sign off.
so he's gonna have several of them with the ejector pumps,
2,
too? Okay,
once he fixes what he's supposed to do.
all right. Okay, if there's, no other questions, all in favor of, approving the financial statements, say aye.
I,
aye,
Aye. Approved. Next item is the board audit accounts payable. So I was just wondering on, this page 2, halfway down, West Tech Engineering, Avalon Heights. So is that a charge that we pay, and then do we charge that back to Avalon
Yes,
Heights?
yes.
So we will get reimbursed, but right now it's out of our accounts? Or how is that
It-
tracked?
We get reimbursed and then it goes into our other revenue as money coming in.
Okay, all right. So this charge,
what are we fronting it out of?
yeah, how does,
Engineering.
Our own engineering, and
Yes,
then
yeah.
versus, we put it back in our engineering account.
No,
It
we
goes
can't.
into other revenue because
It
we
goes-
didn't create a line item for it.
You have to create a line item take out and put back. So whenever we receive payments, it goes into just one, it's called other revenue, which puts it back into general fund.
And then you can transfer if you need
No.
to. Well, okay, I'll ask the questions later.
So, well,
I
it's,
didn't understand how this worked, and you were
Was there some
raising.
method, was there some methodology that, for what you budgeted for engineering in the first place? Did it account for the fact that you're going to have to pay things that won't be reimbursed to the account?
well, nothing can be reimbursed to
To
any
an expense
account
account.
unless you put in, unless you set your budget up to reimburse specifics back to an account.
Right, that's, so when we set how much to put in there to plan at the beginning of the year, does that already include the possibility of money coming out of it for things that won't? See what I'm saying? Did you-
No, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that.
I don't wanna.
So, we use history and what we normally do year to year on our engineering line items. We have different engineering line items. You have them for your capital resource, you have them for your SDC fund. So our engineering is split out through those different, resources. We do not have a way, well, we've never established a way to transfer from directly back into each line item.
Which of the subcategories of engineering does the upfront the fronting come from?
So this comes out of, general fund. If you look in here, you'll see on the budget, you'll see that, under, general fund, you have engineering.
Let's see, you're,
See, in
So
order to
page
receive the
2.
money coming in as a receipt, as a revenue, we would have to create a line.
I don't challenge that.
Yeah.
That's not, not worried
Yeah,
about that.
so-
I wanna
Is
know
that
if
the
the money we
consulting
originally
services?
budgeted to be spent out of engineering included money that is not gonna come back into engineering, because it can't.
No, we do not pick out, we have never, set it up to where it would come out for any specific project. I think that's what you're.
I just wanna know if, when we set up the budget at the beginning of the year, it includes anticipated outflow consisting of fronting money to pay for things
yeah.
we're going to reimburse that will not come back into that.
Well, okay, that's where you got me confused when you said fronting money. All not design engineers, but all your developers, they have to submit plans for our engineers to review,
Mhm.
okay? And then when we get the engineering bill, it's broke down to what we're being charged for each item. So, but we don't break it out as, okay, you reviewed for Avalon Heights project, you reviewed for our Oceanside pump station project. It's just a general line item that has legal and engineering services, an amount in there.
So
that we
that's at line
draw out.
2, the consulting services.
Yes, so the line 2 is legal and engineering,
Okay.
but we have no mechanism to put it
I
back in
get
the
that, I
engineering.
get. I just want, I'll come back to you later on and ask how you come up with the dollar figure for that engineering. What do you use to come up with that dollar figure? Then
Well-
if you're not using stuff that.
What we use is history.
Good.
That's how we
It's
use it.
basically carry
Yeah,
over
Yeah,
what, pretty much about what's been needed before.
yes.
Because Avalon is going to be it's 10% of the whole residential base of Oceanside. 60 houses, where there's only 600.
Right.
So, I thought that might have an impact on us if we have to pay for things out of that account and it hasn't been budgeted for, because it's just budgeted based on history, not on what you're expecting.
It's budgeted off history. A lot of times you have a lull, and then you won't spend much out of that line item at all for that fiscal year. And then a developer could come along, and then you'll spend half of your line item.
And if engineering spends more than you anticipate, how would you make that up?
Well, if it's for us, we have different mechanism. Like I said, if working on the SDCs, like projects for down there, some of that will be pulled out of other engineering services in different
And
funds.
those would be transfers.
They're not transferred, they're directly out of those funds. They break it down internally here.
Okay. I'll come, I don't wanna take the meeting more, I understand it so far, I have 4 questions, I'll ask you.
Well, it'd be easier if we sat down with the budget and went through it, and
All right, any other questions on the board auditor and financial payable accounts? District report.
okay, as you can see, the treatment plant's running really well. We replaced approximately 200 feet, or just shy of 200 feet on Pearl Street. We had looked at around up to 250 to a max of 332. And to get the belly out and get it repaired, we used just under 200 feet. I don't have an exact number yet from memory, but that is completed between manhole 309 and 310. They completed that actually yesterday. It's taken a little longer than what we'd actually anticipated. I did notify Tillamook County Road Department that they can lift the road closure for Pearl Street immediately. We do have a few extra parts because we didn't know exactly how much we were gonna need. So that is completed. Underground Tech, if you look at the proposal from Underground Tech, you'll see we have, this is for II, you'll see that the pictures of the leaky pipe with the root intrusions. So there are 4 pictures, each one represents a different point repair that had to be done to this line. And this is on the very north end of Pearl Street, up there where you come up, watch, just